My name is Kakul Srivastava. I'm really excited to see you. How many of you can hear me? There were some issues with the mic and stuff. Can you all hear me in the back? Awesome, perfect. So I'm super excited to be here today. How many of you were at dinner last night? Wasn't it awesome? Didn't Bridget do an amazing job? It was, I think it is the only time in my life where domestic hen permits, elephant poop, chlamydia, and clowns were all the right answer to the same question. It was really cool. Anyway, let's see, let me grab my slide. So as Robin was saying, I've been around technology for a while. I've been with some of the big brands that you hear about in the tech space. I have worked with not one, but 3 different unicorn companies. I've started my own company, I've sold it, and I'm, by that definition in some way, a Silicon Valley person. That's what I look like in my natural habitat. And so if you looked at my background, you might make some assumptions about what I'm here to talk to you about. You might think, she's going to talk to us about how she's used data and metrics to build communities, because I've done a lot of that. Or she's going to talk about new iterative processes that she's adopted to drive innovation, because I've done some of that too. Or you might think, just so subtly, she's going to try to tell me about how her products and services are so essential to my group, to my agency, to my NGO. And if you thought those things, and if you were hoping for those things, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because I'm not going to talk about any of those things today. Instead, I'm going to talk about how perhaps we in the technology industry have lost our way, and how perhaps the way forward is sitting in this room today, the work that you are driving in your communities. And the reason for that is because I think now is one of the most important times to have impact in our communities. Essential programs are being cut. And the programs that aren't being cut are coming to us with some very strange strings attached. As a woman, as an immigrant, as a technologist, and as a mother, I'm deeply disheartened by the world around us today. Basic services, things that we should expect, safety, justice, health care, healthy water, access to healthy food, are things that are increasingly hard to find. And in this time, it has never been more important for us to come together to truly impact our communities, to truly impact our communities. The technology industry that you see today actually has its roots in some really great ideals. There's a great book by a guy named John Markoff who wrote for the New York Times for a really long time, tracing the roots of the counterculture movement to the technology industry today. How many of you heard that or watched on YouTube the commencement speech that Steve Jobs did at Stanford? Awesome. Those of you who haven't, I really recommend it. He talks about leaving a dent in the universe. He talks about staying hungry and staying foolish. He refers to the Whole Earth catalog, and if you go and read that, you find truly how deeply embedded these roots are of the technology industry with trying to make the world in a very fundamental way. And one of my favorite pictures, way on the side there, it was called the Community Memory Terminal. It was in a record store in Berkeley, And it was really the first social network. People would come in and leave memories and leave notes for other people to find. I think it's really cool. I think it's really magical. But it's not just that our past was idealistic. Our present is idealistic, too. Here's Jack Dorsey. He's the CEO of Twitter and, I guess, Square as well. One could change the world with 140 characters. What a beautiful thought. Mark Zuckerberg, people first. He wants to build something that actually makes a really big change in the world. And even Travis Kalanick, who we all like to pick on, he talks about how the transition period of this new world that he sees will be longer, but that in fact it's going to exist and it's going to be a better world. And it's not just these guys, they're all guys, who talk about making the world a better place. Every entrepreneur in Silicon Valley talks about it, so much so that, I don't know if we can run that video. Can anybody help me with that backstage? If you click on the photo, maybe. Everyone, we do this in Silicon Valley. This is how technology actually works. Cross both hands, cross fingers. If we can't run it, it's okay. But it's a clip of a video of the characters of Silicon Valley talking over and over again about how they want to make the world a better place. And it's funny, just believe me. But the reason it's funny and the reason the people who made the TV show wanted to make fun of this idea is because our reality is so different from that idealism. So this is Twitter. And perhaps it is making a difference, but it's also become a lightning rod for some of the worst behavior on the internet. I personally have friends and colleagues who've been targeted by trolls on the website. And it's pretty frightening. It's pretty horrible. One of our colleagues, we had to get extra security so she could walk from the train system to her home and feel safe. Facebook and fake news. And there's a lot of news about it, and it's not as much about whether child marriages are now legal in Germany or whether the Pope, actually supported Donald Trump. Change that we wanted to see. And of course, Uber. If Facebook is altering how we think about truth, you could argue that Uber and companies like it are changing the fundamentals of some of the foundations of our economy. There are hundreds of thousands of workers and drivers that are now part of the Uber platform here in this country. The first social sharing economies, the first strike in the sharing economy with drivers themselves turning off the application. And last week, 2 stories about the same company. One talking about the incredibly deep and multi-layered sexual harassment that a female engineer experienced at the company. And on the other side, a video of Travis Kalanick arguing with a driver who could no longer make a living wage working for Uber. And it's not a coincidence that both of these things happened at the same time. There's something deeply wrong with what we're doing in Silicon Valley. So why is this happening? What's really underlying some of these trends? And why is it that despite our deep ties to some very noble ideas and our current commitment to similarly noble ideas, that we keep screwing up? And I think it comes from our definition of what it is that we do. Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator. It's sort of like the Harvard of startup schools, startup incubators in the Valley. Airbnb, Dropbox, many others are graduates from this program. And Paul has an extremely well-read blog, and in one of them, he talks about what startups are really about. And he says specifically, the only essential thing is growth. If the only essential thing is growth, that tells us something very specific. One, it's awesome. You've got numbers, you've got metrics. There are a lot of data junkies out there like me. It's so awesome. Numbers are something we understand very well. If you drew a little funnel chart at the other end of the numbers, you can figure out how to grow. I mean, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of iteration. It takes a lot of innovation. But you can figure out how to make numbers move. And that's what's really going on. Twitter has to focus on its growth because when they wake up in the morning, the executives and the board of Twitter look at headlines like this. Competition leaves Twitter in the dust. Twitter only grew by 2 million users during Trump mania. Facebook grew by 72 million. And so that's what they have to focus on. And the controversy, the trolls, the debates, that drives engagement. So it makes it hard for them. Facebook, similarly. I mean, these numbers are astronomical, but it's also a reality that fake news stories drive more engagement than mainstream media. And so it makes it hard for them to try to solve this problem. And Uber, on one side, you see the growth in their valuation. On the other side, you see their declining market share. That makes it hard for them to really do right by drivers because they have to keep bringing the cost down, and they're squeezing the drivers and perhaps squeezing them out. So metrics are important, growth is important, but more important is finding meaning and finding meaning in what it is that we truly want to do. And I think that's where we've lost our way, and that's where we need help. Today, we stand at the cusp of another giant sea change. We thought the Industrial Revolution was big. It changed how we lived, how we worked. It changed the fabric of society and family structures. The digital economy did the same thing. Our lives are fundamentally different than they were 50 years ago. The next sea change is coming, and despite these experiences that we've had, we're more unready for this than anything else, and that's AI. Just a few facts. 2016 report to the President of the United States, the Council of Economic Advisors estimated that based on today's technology, 83% of jobs paying less than $20 an hour can be automated. Just imagine what that does to our neighborhoods, what that does to Main Street, what that does to our schools and our grocery stores. That's a really, really big change based on technology today. Moreover, with technologies available today, 45% of the activities people are paid to perform can be automated, and 60% of all occupations, that means the work that I do, the work that you do, could see 30% or more of their activities automated. That means a third of our jobs, close to a third of our job, changes fundamentally based on technologies that are available today. So this is not just a bottom of the economic pyramid problem. This impacts all of us. A lot of that analysis is based on a great study, a series of studies done by McKinsey, where they look at a wide swath of occupations look at the activities done in these occupations and figure out which can be automated. And so they've got this great analysis. If you're interested, and especially if you're involved in economic opportunity in some way, I highly recommend you go take a look at this. That was all based on technologies that are available today, but technology is moving and it's improving. And now we're at the cusp of AI that can learn. How many of people here recommend or remember the Tay experiment? So Microsoft put one of its AI technologies on Twitter because they wanted it to learn how to be human, and they thought Twitter would be a good interface to learn that. Based on what we've been talking about already, you can guess how this worked out. Within 2 days, Tay was talking about sexual exploits had become racist and anti-Semitic, and Microsoft had to take Tay down. But it learned fast, apparently. The robot in the tie is Jackrabbit. This is a robot that wanders around Stanford's campus, learning how to be in social physical space with other people. So it learns how to pause and when it needs to pause its movement. It learns how much distance it should have from another human being to make it feel right, to make it feel safe. And it learns when to move directly because that gives a social signal to the people around it. This is really subtle, really cool, really interesting technology. And what's cool is Jackrabbit's learning. There's Baxter. Baxter taught itself how to pick up things in 10 days. Had an array of different kinds of objects, and it worked through its programming to learn how to pick up different kinds of things. This is fascinating in 10 days. And there's some research that's happening at MIT right now to allow AI to learn how to do tasks while just listening to humans in a meeting. I wish I was good at that. But the technology is moving fast. Maybe it's just a tiny bit scary. So scary, in fact, that a bunch of really smart, really prominent AI scientists got together and wrote an open letter to other AI researchers. And in it, they said, we recommend research aimed at ensuring that AI systems are robust and beneficial. Our AI systems must do what we want them to do. Our AI systems must do what we want them to do. Does that sound a little bit defensive? A little bit frightened? Anyway, there are lots of scary things about AI. There are lots of wonderful things about AI. Dutch designer partnered, collaborated with some AI that General Motors has created to build auto parts, to build this chair. It's stunning. There's a movie called Sunspring, and this is the guy from Silicon Valley that was just created and made all the award shows, where the screenplay was written by an AI that was fed hundreds of science fiction novels. Increasingly, healthcare is aided by AI, and we use collaboration to help doctors do their work. And in care, in elder care, a topic that I care deeply about, we've got robots who are providing socialization and aiding in loneliness for older people. With all of this happening around the corner and technology continuing to move fast and move to a place where it's going to change everything, again, I wanted to pause for a second and talk about something deeply human, and that's dying. The New Yorker did a really, really wonderful long-piece article on Heather, who's a hospice nurse. And they followed her as she works with people who are dying. And the whole article, if you get a chance to read it, is fascinating. But something that struck me about the article, and I thought this was really important, and perhaps it struck me particularly hard because of where I work and the kind of people that I'm surrounded with, is that they talked about how the actual work that Heather does actually only takes her about 5 minutes, but she spends an hour or more with her patients. She moves slowly, she sits down, she delays, she lingers. And it's because Heather has learned something that we are still trying to learn in the Valley, which is, where do you find meaning? She's not trying to see 10 patients today and 20 patients tomorrow and 200 patients the next day. What she's recognizing is that her value, her meaning, comes from moving slowly, from taking that time, from spending that time with the people that she works with. So for us, it has to be about finding the meaning and not following the metrics. A couple of organizations that I think do a good job of blending the two that I'm involved with. One is Code for America. Some of you might have worked with them, I think, maybe, a few people. They're doing some really amazing work, helping people better access and manage their food stamps in California. They're working closely with the government of California, connecting people to food. That is meaningful. That is important. They're also doing some really great work in helping people rebuild their lives around incarceration. Again, helping people connect to economic opportunity. Pretty meaningful. I'm on the board of an organization called Cure Violence. We put some of the basic underlying principles of social technology, the same things that power the growth of Flickr or Facebook, into reducing gun-related violence. And they've had double-digit decreases in violence and shootings in every neighborhood that they've been in. It's pretty remarkable, increasing our safety. Because when our streets are safe, our kids feel safer. When our kids feel safer, they have better memory and recall. When our neighborhoods feel safe, people come back and shop. It leads to all of these incredible, incredible positive impact in our environment. So again, a way to find meaning, a way to put technology to different kinds of use. So my ask for you today is, yes, we are all data people. Yes, we care about metrics. But let's also, like Heather, slow down, take some time, linger, be thoughtful, and find that meaning. Many of you are at the forefront of helping your communities, your constituents. We in the technology industry have some incredible brain power. We've got some amazing giant piles of money. We've got some pretty amazing, breathtaking technology. Help us put some of that power, some of that potential to good use. Help us find meaning so we can move forward together. Thank you.